The first question that we are going to tackle about the movie is a rather simple one, which is what is love as we see in the movie, and how is it different from the conventional sort of understanding of how romance is portrayed? Um, so the thing that I sort of understood, and this is something which I'm borrowing from Zizek a little. Zizek, in one interview which he gives about love, he essentially says this one sentence which I think summarizes it entirely, which is, "It is too complicated of a thought, and I do not have the energy to spend time on it." And then throughout the interview, he sort of clarifies what he means by it. What he says essentially is that love is not something which can be understood if you look at it from a particular convention. Like if you were to say that love is something which is destructive or love is something which is which is helpful, if you only look at it in terms of binaries, if you only look at it in terms of certain, I would say, labels that you put on it, there is no way that you can understand it. And that is precisely what Park Chan-wook tries to show it throughout the entire movie. We see a build-up of a particular genre or a build-up of at least a convention, which is of the femme fatale in the first half. But then the movie continues beyond that. Throughout the entire movie, he challenges every convention which he normally would have set out with. And in that sense, I think you cannot begin to describe what kind of love it is that you see in the movie. And that is, in my opinion, the aim of the filmmaker. And in doing so, he then breaks convention. I mean, the only other movie which I can think of which portrays love as at least something similar to a certain degree is a Hindi movie called Ishqiya. Uh, and but what about you all? What do you all think?
I think this movie kind of treats love like this very like messy mixture of like attraction, guilt, and loneliness to some extent, because we see two people kind of getting tangled up in one another's lives in ways that they probably shouldn't. Like it's just not acceptable, and I don't think it did either of them any good. And I mean, the female character, I think she's drawn to the male main character because he kind of sees her in ways that no one has ever like seen her before. And also I think she finds a sense of stability in him that her previous partners just couldn't give her, and her life in general couldn't provide her with. And I think their love is also kind of dangerous because the more they cared, the more they kind of ruined things for themselves. So what they had was not the kind of love that was fulfilling, but one that kind of exhausts you from within. That's how I feel about it.
I also feel that love here is kind of like an act of observation because he first goes and meets her because of his investigation. So he kind of, continuously kind of watches her and observes her, and this kind of turns into him knowing her completely. And she also leads, she knows that he's watching, right? So she also acts accordingly. So yeah, it's more of an obsession and observation for me rather than yeah. So it's like
Is
uh,
love
it-
not exactly that? Like, what do you do when you go on a date? What do you do when you try to understand someone? Is it not that observation that we do about a certain person, about how they fit in to our lives or how they sort of match our expectations or something like that? I mean,
yeah,
correct me if
of
I'm
course.
wrong.
Yeah, of course, that is there. But all I'm saying is that there's, this kind of a moral tension where love happens through like this surveillance, where also then surveillance comes in. the question of surveillance throughout the movie, because then it that love becomes a form of power. And if we had to truly decide that who has the form of power, in first look we would say that the male character has the power, form of power, because he is the one continuously surveilling. But like then again we can say that the female character has a form of power, since she knows and she, you know, chooses to behave in a certain way and show him her certain parts, because she knows that he's watching her. And of course, yeah, what you said is true. I mean, yeah, we can see that by connecting the last scene too.
Mm. I want to pick up on the surveillance thing that you spoke about, Suchi. And I also have
Right.
something to ask about the stability part, which Kritika mentions, but I think the surveillance aspect of it is something which is a little more pertinent here, which is there a significance of this surveillance? And this is a question which came to me much later. Does this surveillance, in a sense, succeed? Like this objective of the surveillance of not just the detective surveilling the suspect or the woman, so as to speak, but the what like the objective of him surveilling. Does that is that successful? Would you say that it's successful?
So him successfully surveilling the female character, are you saying?
I'm saying that the objective with which he chooses to sort of observe her. Surveillance is not something which in the movie is only one-sided, right? I mean, at first, even before he begins observing her or in a way spying on her, if that is a better word, it actually begins much earlier than that when she decides to sort of follow him in her car and follow him throughout the chase sequence, which was shot amazingly in, I think, a single take, I think, very beautifully choreographed. So the surveillance begins with the suspect spying on the detective, right? And then vice versa. But then, as you mentioned, she knows that she's being spied on and so on. But there is an objective to this spying business, right? It might be the detective's objective might be to find out whether she is truly a culprit, whether or not, right? Because he has doubts about
Right.
her from the beginning. So, in that sense, or in any sense of the word successful, would you say that this act of spying on her and vice versa, is it successful to either of them? Do they succeed in this? Like, is their objective met? What would
But
you
what
say?
I think is that the surveillance first was because of the investigation, but then it slowly, it, you know, shows the lens of this modern technology, as you also mentioned earlier, had mentioned in one of our discussions, that how the detective doesn't like to use technology, but he does here. So it's like, you know, he wants to. I feel like he wants to represent like how we look at others, or how we observe others, to, you know, kind of in a way fill our, you know, emotional voids. And especially in the character of Jun, he has this, you know, he surveillances Suge because that is his way of feeling alive, which the part of him which didn't feel alive as years went by in his life, he feels this when he watches Surya and becomes a part of her life in that way.
You're saying that him spying on or observing the female character is a way of him trying to feel alive?
Yeah, it gives him
Okay.
the thrill that was
Uh,
missing, that was missing before meeting her.
okay, and what do you have to say about the success part of it? Like, do you think of it, would you like to think of it as a successful or a failure? Or would you just be like, it doesn't matter, or whatever?
I would think that it's not a success from the male character side, because as we mentioned earlier, that she knows, the female character knows that she's being watched, so she performs for it, right? So here the observed becomes the director. She becomes the one who's controlling. So whatever objective that the male character might have had in the starting of the film, that collapses, right? Because here the observer becomes the one controlling the situation, because she can act in however she wants and whatever she wants to show the male character.
Okay, so then if the objective sort of uh is sort of failed, as you say, because she is someone who gains ultimate control. That's what you're saying, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. So then how does he eventually find out that she is the culprit if the observation did truly fail? Because it is through his observations that he finds out that the grandmother, the old lady, has the same phone and that it is showing that she did indeed go outside, and like he basically solves the entire case through this observation. So then how does it fail? Kritika, would you like to sort of attack
I
this
wouldn't,
question?
yeah, so I wouldn't say that it was through him observing her that he got to that conclusion. I feel like
Hmm.
it was kind of a coincidence, a fluke that he even, you know, um saw that in the grandmother's phone. It wasn't through active observation on his part um that he found out about it. So yeah.
Okay,
I also
that
And
wanted to,
does.
also,
right.
yeah,
Mhm.
yes, I just wanted to say that I think him kind of observing her is how they began to kind of get close to begin with, because that was how they communicated, even though a part of it was manipulated by her because she knew that she was being watched. I would say that it's still, it's like a very crucial aspect of how their relationship developed, because um that is that is what helped their relationship kind of evolved into what it did later. But I think it also kind of talks about how blurry it got for him at one point, because it makes you think about when he stopped being an objective detective and just someone who was obsessed.
Okay. But he is. Oh, okay. That the obsession part of it does make sense. Do you think that the observation has, or this surveillance or spying on, has some other implications which perhaps the director might have wanted to show? Would we all view it in that lens?
I also think that politically it just, it kind of mirrors the world we live in. So world where we're
Hmm.
constantly observed and where our privacy and intimacy, have collapsed into the same screens of our phones and that gadgets.
So in
I
that
mean, when
sense, again, oh, sorry, continue, please.
yeah, so like when we think about our everyday lives, we're pretty much being surveilled by the electric devices that we use. I mean, when it comes to like the terms and conditions that we agree to when using certain apps like Instagram and like YouTube, even basically every mainstream social media platform that you can think of, we kind of consent to being surveilled upon, and there's just nothing that we do about it, really. It's just a part of our lives at this point, especially with like how good tracking technology has become. So I think that like it could be like an, like the whole observation part could be an ode to this aspect.
Hmm. Okay. Fair enough. Now the last question which I had to, it's actually a series of questions. So the title of the movie is, at least the English translate title of it is Decision to Leave, right? Now within this, there are four central questions which I sort of made, which is A is whose decision is it to leave? Okay, and since we are sort of running out of time, let's just boil it down. So, do you think that there is a decision to leave of a particular character? If so, then what is it that they are deciding to leave, or whom is it that they are deciding to leave, and to where?
Yeah,
And
Um,
here, I think, I'm sorry, please continue. Yes.
I was gonna say that I think it's technically the both of them, but I would say that it was the female character's decision to leave that kind of hit me harder because she's the one who keeps kind of stepping back when she realizes being close to him is only going to hurt them both like collaterally. So when the male character tries to leave the city, he's kind of terrible at letting go, but like when the female character made the choice of leaving, she couldn't, well, when the female character made the choice of leaving, it was kind of apparent that the male character was kind of the one who couldn't seem to let her go. So it was eventually her who made the hard decision to leave, um, and she left any version of a future that they might have had as well, because she was the one who removed herself from the narrative so that he didn't keep falling apart. So it's kind of sad, but it's also the only way she knew how to protect him.
I also feel that she leaves him, but also leaves his gaze, so that constant uh, emotional love that she felt trapped in and had no way to escape, because in the starting of the movie until the end, the male character doesn't realize how whether he truly loves her or whether he truly wants her, and she keeps expecting these love and this closeness from him, I feel, and she gets trapped in it in a way. So in a way, her final act is, both love and rebellion. So she chooses to die, and her because it's not just physical. It's like she leaves behind the roles assigned to her, so like of a suspect and as well as a lover.
Oh, okay. So the answer which I had sort of come up with was that the entire movie, and I don't remember exactly what the quote was or who said the quote, but it was that every story essentially is a journey, right? And so this title of Decision to Leave is sort of an implication of this larger journey which Park Chan-wook im sort of directly says, like it's a very on the face kind of thing. And that is of the mountain and the sea. And this is where I will come to Kritika's one word which I sort of uh, noticed, which was the stability part of it, right? So if you all remember the quote, which the female character quotes in the movie of Confucius, which was that the benevolent love the mountains and the wise love the sea, right? I think the mountain in throughout the entire movie, not to go into too much detail, but the mountain in a sense signifies a certain ability which you do get. It might be difficult, it might be a very arduous sort of thing, but nevertheless, it still provides a certain stability. There is a constant thing that you see within a mountain. But the problem of the mountain then comes that what do you do once you attain the peak? And it is at the peak of the mountain that we see the main case, which is of the female character and the detective, to be resolved. But then it begins again by sea. It is the sea which brings it back, and the sea is sort of the other side of the coin, which shows a rather shifty nature. You can never figure out the sea as you would to a mountain, right? And so there is one shot of her, of the female character, when she decides to sort of kill herself. She makes a ditch, and from the sand that she digs, she makes this one small mountain, which then is collapsed by the sea. And it is in the sea that their story eventually ends in, right? And the
Yeah.
allusion of the sea is, and the mountain is constantly referenced throughout the entire movie and so on. So ultimately, I think the way that I decided to look at this question was that everything else just became this journey or this decision to leave, perhaps the mountain for the sea, or vice versa, because the female character makes a journey from the sea because, as is mentioned, she came by sea, right, in a ship, and she goes to the mountains. She heads to the mountains, but there she finds nothing but sorrow. Right, her husband beats her, and the only time that she truly does feel alive perhaps is by the sea when the case reopens again, when the detective enters into her life again, and it is then in that journey that she understands that she loves him. And she says that directly too, that the moment you said you love me, your love ended and mine began. Her love begins at sea, similar to how her life in Korea also began through sea because she entered via sea. So I think it's just that
It's also how
journey,
so it's
you
also
know.
how the mountain and sea can, meet only at the shore. So for a moment there,
Mm.
they touch and then they part ways again. So their love, kind of exists exactly
They're
there on that thin
tantalizingly
line of
close, but they
tension.
can never meet,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
And that is
I
also shown, right? There is a shot of a mountain being by the shore, which is not the mountain which she constructs, right? But they can never meet. They can only observe, in a way, each other, which the characters do throughout the movie. Kritika, are you
I
saying
just
something?
wanted to say, like, going along the lines of what you said, I think the mountains kind of end up representing the life that the male character was trying to hold on to. You know, the one with a steady job, a steady marriage, and steady morals. But when he gets involved with Seore, the female character, all of that kind of just starts to unravel, which we see very well, like visually represented, like at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
Right.
truly, yeah. I
Okay,
think guys, the time's
makes
up.
sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's end it.
thank you.
Thank
Okay, bye bye.
you.
Yeah, bye.
Hello.